we have to do. We have to not pop a blister, okay? Bloody noses. My son had a bloody nose last night. He's a very, very hard workouter. So he's been working out a lot lately. He's been using up his electrolytes. His vitamin K's gotten low. His potassium, his magnesium, everything's gotten low because he's sweating profusely all the time because he's working out so much. And he's getting super good and healthy, and he starts having nosebleeds. And I'm like, it's your vitamin K again, buddy. He's like, but I eat my greens. I'm like, I know, but you're working out, and you're increasing your metabolism, and so your body is using all this. And all the way to school today, I was like, if you're working out and you're sweating a lot more than normal, you're probably going to be low in potassium because you lose that through sweat, and you're going to be low in all your electrolytes because that's what happens when you sweat. And that's probably why you're having a bloody nose. And he goes, ugh. And I go, what, you don't believe, Mom? And he goes, ugh. You think I don't know that already, Mom?
Bless his heart.
I know. I'm like, oh, okay, sorry. Because I was going to get all over him. Like, are you kidding me? I'm a doctor. Don't you know people come to me and ask me for this advice? And, and he's like...
He's been down that road before.
You think I don't know that already?
I love that. That's so cute.
So he knows. And he does. And that's what it was. Vitamin K. It was vitamin K. So... and vitamin K comes from greens. It's not potassium. Potassium can cause muscle spasms, but vitamin K is different. It comes from greens. And if you don't have enough vitamin K, you can't absorb your D. And therefore, you can't absorb your calcium. And therefore, you're going to have muscle spasms. You're going to have all kinds of issues. But one thing that low vitamin K does is it is our natural blood thickener. So people who are on Coumadin, warfarin, blood thinners, they are not supposed to have vitamin K. But without vitamin K, you're a bleeder. You're a bleeder. So he's always been, for whatever reason, he has had a weakness when it comes to vitamin K. Even though he does eat some greens, he just doesn't eat enough, and he doesn't understand that. He's learning that now, but he needs more of that because what happens is when he has dizziness, he needs 1 vitamin K. When he has headaches, he needs 2 vitamin K. When he has nosebleeds, he needs 3 vitamin K. He has gotten to that point. When he passes out, which has happened occasionally, he needs 4 vitamin K. And this is how his body works, and he knows that. So he knows if he has a nosebleed, he has to go take 3 vitamin K. So people don't know that, though. So he had this nosebleed, and oh, my gosh. Psh, my lovely husband, love him to death. Get him some ice. Why are we getting ice? Get him some ice. I'm like, He's like, it'll slow down the blood. Well, okay. So I got him some ice. It's too deep. Ice only really goes about a 1/4 inch under the surface. It doesn't really get deep enough to get to the internal sinus layers that we're trying to get to. So I'm like, forget with the ice. Oh, I thought we were going to get into fisticuffs, him and I. Not really. But he was like, get him the ice. I'm like, forget the ice. The ice is unneeded. The ice is unnecessary. We don't need to. It's vitamin K. What is the ice going to do? I'm like, get him the vitamin K. Get him the ice. I'm like, oh, gosh. So he had ice and vitamin K. Whatever. And I don't know. His nose stopped bleeding. Yeah, it did.
But was it because of the ice or the vitamin K?
We'll never know. We'll never know. And along with that, covering an open wound. Used to be keep it covered. Well, now we know that, if it doesn't breathe, it's not going to create the scab. It's not going to seal itself up. So we really do need to keep it covered initially. We definitely don't want to get bacteria and stuff in there to create infection. But we do, however, want to let it air out. So if we let it air out occasionally, usually if I have a wound, I'll keep it covered most of the day. And then when I'm laying at night and, I'm not anywhere where it's going to brush up against anything that I could get bacteria from, then I'll take the bandage off and I'll let it kind of open and breathe and seal up, because that's what we want. Ultimately, we want a scab. And my boys were so funny. I got to tell you the scab story. You'll like the scab story. So I hate the word scab. Like, I've always hated that word. It may have something to do with the fact that my dad was a...
Scabber?
No! Blasphemy. My dad was an international rep for the UAW for 30-something years. So a scab was somebody who walked across the picket line.
Right.
And that was drilled into me from a very young age. So for them to tell me not to pick my scabs was a weird thing. I was like, scabs are bad. We don't want scabs. Like, I couldn't get that we were talking about two different things. So I hate the word scab. All right, so when the boys were little, and I another thing I hate is when kids get like infatuated with Band-Aids. That's just sort of a pet peeve of mine. Just put a Band-Aid on it. I'm like, but it's not, the skin's not broken. Put a Band-Aid on it, kiss it. I'm like, oh, with the Band-Aids. Like, you never have a Band-Aid, and your baby wants a Band-Aid for every bruise and bump. It's like, you don't have Band-Aids.
But some of them are so cool looking.
Now they are, but back in the day they were
just
not
flesh colored.
So when the babies were little, I would tell them, "You don't need a Band-Aid. Jesus is going to make a Band-Aid for it." And I called it Jesus Band-Aid. So scabs were not scabs in my house.
Right.
Scabs were Jesus Band-Aid. I said Jesus makes the best Band-Aid there is. So Jesus is going to bless you, and Jesus is going to make a Band-Aid for you. You just got to give it a second, and it'll make its own Band-Aid. That's the way your body works. Your body's natural. God knows what it's doing. God knows how to make it heal. So we're going to wait for Jesus' Band-Aid. And so that's how I taught them.
That's brilliant.
So, well, it is and it isn't, because then they went to school. And they went to Head Start. And JP was about 4 years old, and I get a call from the school. Mrs. Deer, you need to come pick up your 4-year-old. He's bleeding everywhere, and he will not allow us to apply a Band-Aid. And I said, what? And they said, he keeps screaming about Jesus and how Jesus is going to put a Band-Aid on it, and we need to leave it alone. And I'm sorry, Mrs. Deer, but we cannot have children bleeding around other children. I said, well, he's right. If you give it a minute, it'll stop bleeding. They said, what is this? What is he talking about? Well, he's talking about a scab. We call it a Jesus Band-Aid. They said, oh, my goodness, Mrs. Deer.
That's so funny. I could just see them saying that.
So because he won't allow us to put a Band-Aid on it, you need to come pick him up. I said, okay, but by the time I get there, he's going to have Jesus Band-Aid, right? Right on that. It was a Christian school. But it was funny. It was so funny to me. But this poor kid, he threw a fit. I mean, his lid flipped. No, you're not putting anything on that. I want Jesus to put it there. I want Jesus' Band-Aid. And oh my God,
ladies, that's so funny.
They were beside themselves. But this is my kid. You don't even know. My kid threw a fit because they served blueberry muffins. And he wanted to let all his blueberries free because it wasn't fair that they were baked into a muffin. So he made a mess. Like he was picking his muffin apart. And they're like, no, you got to eat your muffin. No, I'm not eating these blueberries. They're trapped. I'm letting them free. Free blueberries, free. So this is how JP thinks. I love it. But
funny.
he's 21 now, but he still thinks that way, and I love it.
That's hilarious.
But the Jesus Band-Aid thing is brilliant. It really is. But it's like, it's just, I wanted them to leave it there. I didn't want them to pick it off. Like, to me, scab was a bad thing, so I picked it off.
Right.
But I wanted them to leave it alone. So I'm like, leave it alone. It's the best Band-Aid you can have. God seals it right up for you. Jesus, He knows how to make it perfect. It's going to seal it right up.
And it comes off when it's healed.
Comes off when it's healed. You don't have to do nothing. It knows when to fall off. It's the perfect Band-Aid. Perfect.
It is.
So that I tell them, let them do it. So, yeah. So that's
hilarious.
That's my Jesus Band-Aid story, my scab story. So. But they're so fun. I love my kids. They think of the funniest stuff, and I know it's all driven from the crazy stuff that I taught them when they were little. But, they're smart. They're smart about it, and they know. Like my one son out in California one time, he was having a toothache, and he called me, and he goes, Mom, I just went to the dentist a couple months ago. There was no problem. I said, well, push your finger up there and adjust it. They all know how to adjust themselves. Put your finger up there and adjust it. What? I said, yeah, adjust your tooth. It'll pop back in. You'll feel it, and then it'll be fine. Sure enough, He reached up there. He pushed it in. He said he felt a pop. The next day, his toothache was gone.
I'll be darned.
So, it's these things. It's this knowledge. And I've often said I really want to teach this to babies. Like, the earlier you can train them, the better. If they know that when their left shoulder hurts, that they need to watch what they're eating because their pancreas is off, think how much health care costs that's going to save them. Think how quickly they can resolve issues with their body before it turns into disease. If they know that that if they're going back and forth between, soft poop and hard poop, that maybe they're having a dairy allergy or some problem with their food sensitivity issues, then they can kind of keep track and see what's going on and take care of it on their own. Like, if babies are taught and trained in the beginning about their bodies to this extent, think about the implications that would have across the board as adults and as of the health in our country.
Right.
So that's what I want.
Very good. Very good show. We covered a lot of stuff.
We did. We always do.
Right. So sum it up for us.
All right. Summing it up. You need to listen, but you also need to hear. Listening is one thing. Hearing is quite another. And engaging. And it takes focus. And if you're not willing to be focused and listen and hear what the other person's saying, you really have no business in that conversation at all. Because it's completely one-sided. You're not going to get anything out of it. What did Patrick say? He said, if what you're saying is important, then what you're hearing is just as important. And if you're not willing to consider that, you might as well walk out and go have the conversation to yourself while you're driving in the car, because nobody else is listening to you either. Especially when they get frustrated because you're on to the next thing without hearing them. They know that. So that just really interrupts communication. So that's my takeaway. Listen, be focused, participate, engage in conversation. Don't just
ask questions. Ask a lot of questions.
Repeat it back.
Right.
If you don't know what they said, or you know what, sometimes I did that when I was practicing engaging with people. I would repeat back what they said, not every time.
Right.
Because that drives me nuts.
Yes. Does that drive you nuts?
It drives me nuts. It drives me nuts.
Listening. Ask yourself, am I breathing through my nose?
What?
Yep.
That came out of nowhere.
What happens when you're breathing through your nose?
You're
Your
listening.
mouth shut.
Your mouth is shut.
That's brilliant. Your mouth is shut.
He's just full of
He's
of it
full of
today.
something. All right. What is your takeaway?
My takeaway is, gosh, I have a couple of them.
Let's hear them.
My takeaway is to let people be who they are without having any of my what I want them to be involved.
We went on a tangent there, and it was lovely.
And that is so important. Because if you do that, then everything else, hearing what they're saying, will fall into place. Because if you think that they're saying it one way and they're not, you can ask a question to make sure without getting mad. Just like your example.
Exactly. What else?
Don't put heat on a boo-boo. On something that's sore. Don't put heat on it. That's so important.
Yes. And don't traumatize your nursery school teachers and yell at them about Jesus.
Right. Yeah, just kind of lay off that. I had to go pick Errol up once. I know we're running over, but I have to tell you the story because I can't hold on to it, or my throat chakra will be. I'll get the burps. So Errol, he loved macaroni and cheese. We used to make it from scratch a lot, and he really liked it. And I'd add vegetables to it, and they loved that. And I'd bake it, yum, creamy, yummy. So one day I get this call from his preschool. And I can hear Errol crying in the back. Errol won't eat his lunch. And I said, well, what is it? And she said, macaroni and cheese. And I said, well, Errol loves macaroni and cheese. And I said, I think I packed him some stuff that day. Why, just let him eat that. And So I went to get him. We get in the car, and I said, so what happened at lunch?